Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Nick Whitaker again, back again for another News Lab office hour. This week, we're actually talking about Google Consumer Surveys, and I have Matt Villacarte, a good friend and colleague, who's going to be taking us through all of the various different options that are available for Google Consumer Surveys, both for research and reporting. I also just wanted to give you guys a little bit more information about the News Lab office hours in general. You can come back and tune into these every week or so on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Google News Lab. And you can find out more about our team and all of the various different options we provide, from training to data to programs, at g.co/newslab. Definitely worth checking out. And if you missed any of the previous office hours, you can also see those on our YouTube account going back many, many different weeks. We'll be doing another round of these coming up in the next 2 weeks. One with Alberto Cairo for our data journalism roundup, which is a really fantastic opportunity to take a look at a whole breadth of different data journalism visualizations, get some tips and tricks about how to take advantage of those. But today we're talking with Matt about Google Consumer Surveys. Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what are we going to be talking about today?
Thank you, Nick, and good morning from San Francisco. My name is Matt Villacarte. I work on strategic partnerships for Google Consumer Surveys. And I'm going to be talking about the product a little bit today and giving you a little bit of history. I will go through how it works, and hopefully by the end of this, it'll inspire some thought around how you can incorporate this as a tool into your day-to-day. I've been with the team since it publicly launched in March of 2012. So I've seen it just about from the beginning all the way through to the present day. So I'm excited to talk about this and share how the product works. And again, hopefully what comes out of this is that it'll inspire thought on how you can use this in your day-to-day work as well. That's
great, Matt. And, you know, obviously, there's a lot of options that are available to journalists to get surveys, to get more information about the world around them. Tell us a little bit, and just like a very high level, you know, what is Google Consumer Surveys and why is it relevant to a particular journalist in their day-to-day work?
Yes, and we'll dive into this, but in a nutshell, what Google Consumer Surveys is, it's a self-serve online survey platform where you can get insights, qualitative insights from the web, basically in real time, and you can get responses to basically any question you want to ask within days. That survey is complete within days. After you even create a survey, you start seeing responses within hours. So it's really the ease of being able to conduct a survey online. Obviously, the quality of data. This is obviously a Google product, so a lot of kind of quality assurances have been put into creating this product, and then the speed by which you can get this. So just think survey research at the speed and scale and quality of Google. So
that's great. I love it. Yeah, so for those of you who are just joining in, we're talking about Google Consumer Surveys today. I just wanted to remind folks that we do have lessons on our site at g.co/newslab, which will tell you a little bit about consumer surveys. We're also taking live questions today. So if you have questions about consumer surveys that Matt can answer, as he said, he's been here since the beginning, so he's the perfect person to be digging into these in a little bit more detail. So definitely send in your questions via the comment section on the YouTube page, or you can even tweet at us. We'll be able to pull up those from the News Lab Twitter handle. But Matt, I believe you have some slides for us. You're going to walk us through a little bit. Let's take a look at those and let's just jump right in.
Sure. Let me get situated here. Hang on one second. I just lost your window, Nick.
I'm still here.
That is very comforting. All right, here we go. Okay, so hopefully you all can see.
Yeah, we see your screen.
Perfect. So just to kind of recap what we've been talking about here is that, you know, again, thank you all for joining today. Once again, I'm Matt from the Google Consumer Surveys team, and what we're going to talk about here today is Google Consumer Surveys. I'm going to provide you a general overview of the product. I'm going to talk about how it came to be, which I think might be interesting to you coming from kind of the news space. I'll talk about how it works and how it's being used today by journalists and newsrooms alike. So let's dive right in. So Google Consumer Surveys was co-founded by two longtime Googlers, Paul McDonald, a former senior product manager for Gmail, and Brett Slatkin, a very well-respected Google software engineer. In 2010, Paul saw this chart, which was published by Pew, that illustrated some of the challenges that the news industry was facing as readers began consuming content online. As you can see, the numbers weren't looking great, and then they certainly weren't moving up and to the right. So Paul and Brett got together, and by the way, Brett's wife is a journalist, so Brett also had a little bit more insight as well into some of the challenges being faced by publishers. So Paul and Brett set out to solve for the revenue challenge that this chart sort of illustrates, and this led to the creation of a 20% project. And for those of you who don't know what a 20% project at Google is, here our product and engineering teams are encouraged to take up to 20% of work time to focus on personal projects that they're really passionate about. So this passion project eventually became Google Consumer Surveys, GCS for short. And you'll hear me refer to the product as GCS throughout today's session as well. So again, what is GCS? As I mentioned earlier, it's a self-serve online survey platform that provides researchers the ability to survey a representative sample of their target audience online or on mobile devices. So again, think survey research at Google scale, quality and speed, and of course at a reasonable price, at least compared to other methods of conducting online surveys. Using the product is as easy as asking your question, choosing your target audience, and watching your analyzed results come in. And again, typically the results filter in days, and you'll see surveys complete in a matter of a week or in some cases less than a week. So.
And Matt, how does that compare with other types of survey opportunities? I mean, I think one of the big features that we really want to kind of highlight with consumer surveys is that speed, you know, the fact that you can get answers back really quick.
Certainly.
Maybe even the overall like cost of doing something like this. Is this pretty typical for survey availability for journalists or researchers?
Yeah, there's certainly different ways to collect this type of qualitative data. But I think you touched on it, the speed is really the key here. So if you compare it to, let's compare it to traditional methods where it may involve having to recruit a panel to survey, and that requires a lot of time to be able to do that. And it could also be costly as well. So in this case, we've sort of automated that whole process with Google Consumer Surveys, and that's how we're able to get you your results, get your survey in front of a representative sample of your target audience quickly versus weeks instead of months, for example.
Gotcha. And I often get the question, about the quality of data from journalists. They're obviously and rightly so concerned about, who are these people? Like, what is this representative sample that we're pulling from? Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of walk us through like some of the steps that are involved in that?
Yes. So we on the Publisher Network we infer demographics. And this is based on a user's anonymous browsing history, and this is a lot of. If you're familiar with Google's ad products, it's built on something called the double-click cookie. And that double-click cookie essentially collects anonymized browsing history, which allows us to be able to infer the basic demographics of a particular respondent. So age, gender, and of course we infer geography based on IP.
Gotcha. So you can actually really drill down pretty concretely to the type of audience that you're looking for to target a specific survey result and really get the kind of answers you're looking for.
Absolutely, we can, and within within the bounds, of course, of making sure that there's no personally identifiable information being involved in this. But yes, we can drill down pretty granularly and pretty accurately. And then we also, and I'll talk about this a little bit too. So in addition to the publisher network, which I'll go into detail about this, but we also have an Android app where users of this Android app opt in and volunteer demographic information. But we'll drill into all of those details in a little bit as well.
Yeah, and that app that you're talking about specifically, there's actually incentives to be to actually participate in that as well, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yes, absolutely. And I think if anyone's on an Android device, you're going to want to know about this information. So.
Yeah, I pay for the vast majority of my apps actually through surveys. So we'll get into that in a little bit.
All of your Pokemon Go in-app purchases, Nick?
Exactly.
All right, so we talked about what GCS is. So that sounds great, but how does it really all work? I've been referring to different things so far, such as the Publisher Network, etc. Brett and Paul trying to help publishers monetize content. Well, how does this all work? GCS is built on a three-part ecosystem. So researchers, or perhaps journalists like yourselves, author surveys with GCS. The surveys are then distributed across a network of content that web publishers wish to monetize. And then when users land on that content, they are prompted with surveys to earn access to content as an alternative to, say, a paywall. So in effect, users are empowered with this ability to pay for access to content by simply sharing an anonymous opinion. And the idea here is that for this ecosystem, it sets up as a win-win-win. So researchers get quality insights, publishers are compensated for providing content, and readers can enjoy the high-quality work put forth by newsrooms and journalists. And that it's amazing to think that this all grew out of Brett and Paul getting together to create a 20% project at Google, and to support quality journalism.
Yeah, and I think this is a really interesting and really important point. And I think a lot of people, they're a little bit confused about Google's consumer surveys, and it's like, well, am I putting these ads on my site? How does this all work? And I think just this particular graph that we're looking at here, the fact that it's serving both users, publishers, and the researchers and journalists, I think is a really key point. Monetization of content, obviously, figuring out ways to pay for that high quality of journalism. This provides a really easy way to do that. It's a pretty easy paywall structure. Answer one or two quick questions, and you have access to this fantastic content as a user. As a publisher, it gives you the opportunity to make money and garner revenue off of your good content. But then also it is just this really fantastic research tool as well. So, I think, this distinction and this kind of differentiation between the three different audiences for this is really, really key.
And I think also that you can't understate the user's role in this. If you think about, let's say, for instance, if you think about the notion of paywalls, for instance, paywalls alone, the inherent message is pay or go away. Well, what this enables publishers to do is actually offer a choice. So either answer a survey to earn access to this content or subscribe. But at the very least, you're empowering users with choice rather than sending this message of pay or go away. So that's also, I thought that was a really vital part of how this all works as well. Because in the end, the users, take care of the users and all else will follow kind of thing, right?
Totally.
So I want to dig deeper into the publisher network a little bit, but I think just to kind of level set here, what we'll be talking about today, we obviously talked about the broader ecosystem, but this is really going to be focused on, well, we're going to be looking at this through the lens of the researchers. So we'll carry on here, but just bear in mind that we're going to sort of look at the product through the lens of the researcher. and again, to see how this might fit into your day-to-day in terms of creating content, et cetera.
So really taking a look at it from like, if you're a journalist looking for information, looking for to tap into this publishers network, that's kind of the lens that we're looking at it through.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick. So let's talk about how responses are collected. We touched on this a little bit early on in our discussion, but I'll start with the publisher network. So we have this network of publishers where hundreds of publishers host surveys on select content. We have large publishing groups to local newspapers using this. We have magazines. It really runs the gamut. You have some quality blogs as well that use this to monetize content. So there's a wide variety that enables us to provide maximum coverage in terms of demographics across the span of the web. So on the mock page that you see here, it's an example of what the GCS prompt looks like. So the top prompt is what it would look like on the web, and the one right below is what the prompt might look like on the mobile web.
So when someone goes to an article, let's say I'm going to like Wall Street Journal, or I'm going to, take your pick of news organizations. I come to a particular piece of content. I go to read that content. This is the first thing that pops up either on mobile or on desktop. And it gives you this kind of like a quick prompt to either answer a question or skip it.
Yeah, so what happens is when you land on an article page, publishers typically provide a snippet of the content, along with the title, of course, at the very top. And then you will see that green bar. And that essentially indicates the start of the prompt. And then it really acts as a survey wall. The content beneath will be alighted or grayed out until the user takes an action on the prompt. So either complete the survey, or if the publisher has chosen an alternate action, like a paywall, a subscription, for example, the user will be asked to take one of the two actions to unlock the rest of the content.
So
and it's a similar experience on mobile.
Got it. So this actually gives a lot of control for the publisher standpoint as well. So like, you have these consumer surveys, you have these questions that you're setting up. In this case, we're looking, at a pretty basic one. When shopping for new clothing, which trait do you consider the most important? If for some reason the viewer or the reader doesn't want to answer that particular one, they can skip. And at that point, it kind of forks, right? It gives it the opportunity to either push them off to another paywall, and I think New York Times might be a good example of that, where they have like a very structured paywall system there, which you would then be ported into. Or if in this case there's multiple questions that are available, it gives you an option to maybe answer a survey questions maybe more relevant to your own day to day.
Yes, absolutely. Some publishers, if you hit the skip button, you actually get access to that article. But if you go to the next article, if it's a paywall site, for example, you may be prompted again.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think that's a really
here.
Yeah, I think that's really the key kind of takeaway for this slide for me is that it's providing flexibility not just for the publisher but also for the user as well. You're not locking somebody into like one way of accessing or experiencing this content. It gives you a few different options, and it's relatively lightweight. I mean, this is like one click of a button and then you're into your content.
And we're talking these interactions, these user interactions. They take, on average, between 6 and 8 seconds, and it's simple. These generally make sense to the user, and what's telling us this is that we're seeing survey completion rates well into the double digits. So it seems to be the notion of paying for content with an anonymous opinion, rather than necessarily pulling out a credit card. It seems to be landing with users.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, just for me on a personal level, I mean, I very much believe in the value of paying for good quality content. And I think that that's something, at least in the Western news ecosystem, it's starting to just become a thing of awareness where people are like, oh, if I want really, really high quality content, that has to be paid for in some way or another. And, as you're showing that first slide, the declining revenue of news publishers, this provides like this really easy opportunity to not just monetize your content, but as a user, paying with something that's very easy and lightweight. Instead of actually paying for money, you're just paying for like 8 seconds of your time in order to be able to gain access to something like this, which, in comparison to the amount of time that actually takes to put together a piece of content like this, I think it's a pretty good deal.
And you're basically supporting the organizations that are delivering this content that's very useful and very important to you as well. So there's certainly, I can see certainly a lot of benefits there. Brett and Paul were genius in thinking this up, by the way. I wish I were that smart myself. So we're talking about this from the publisher side. Well, what does this mean for researchers? In a nutshell, it means it's a universe of tens of millions of unique users at the ready, ready to be surveyed, literally at your fingertips. And we talked about the demographics as well. So it would those results would come complete with demographics such as age and gender, and all inferred based on the user's cookie-based and anonymized browsing history. And so if you stop and think about that kind of scale and that quality of data for a moment, through the lens of a researcher looking for reliable qualitative insights, I would argue GCS is a pretty powerful tool. Now, there's a complementary piece to the publisher network, and that is what we talked about before, is the Android app. The Android app is called Google Opinion Rewards. If you have an Android device and you happen to either be in the US, Canada, UK, Mexico, Japan, Australia, Brazil, Spain, France, or Germany, more countries soon, I encourage you to download the app and give it a try. It's called Google Opinion Rewards. So when you first open the app, you'll be asked some basic demographic questions, such as your age and gender. And when surveys become available, they'll be magically pushed to your device along with a notification. And then in exchange for completing surveys, you'll earn Google Play credits, which ultimately goes towards supporting app creators in the Google Play Store. So, like I was mentioning earlier, Nick can now answer surveys for Pokecoins for his in-app purchases on Pokemon Go.
Yeah, and again, I can't stress enough, how awesome this particular app. I mean, like this feature by itself, for me, it was like really the kind of determining factor as to whether or not I was going to participate. The fact that you're incentivizing participation beyond just being able to gain access to good content. The fact that you're able to, actually get play credits. So I pay for music, I pay for apps. Like I can't remember the last time I actually used money. I actually, when I'm waiting in line for something or when I have a few minutes, instead of just like surfing randomly on the web, I'm actually taking advantage of these surveys and actually providing a really great service in exchange for credit that I can then use to entertain myself later on. So again, I just think that this is a really, really useful way to incentivize people to help facilitate this type of work.
Yeah, and I think you can sense a recurring theme here in Brett and Paul's thinking, right? It's really supporting content creators with this tool. And again, for researchers, there are already millions of users on Google Opinion Rewards, so they're just waiting to share their opinions on your next survey. So we talked about the product's genesis and generally how it works. So why use GCS? I think first, it's simple to use, and you'll find just about everything you would need to run a meaningful online survey. Multiple question types, a simple, intuitive online interface. And the best part of this is once you fire up your survey, you typically begin seeing results almost immediately. And a turnaround time like that could be key for journalists and newsrooms in general, as I know you're often working on very tight deadlines. So I think this is where GCS could be useful and certainly is worth consideration if you're looking for qualitative insights. So just to recap again where we are live, the product is live in 10 countries: US, Canada, UK, Mexico, Japan, Spain, France, and Germany. And I should also mention that you can create surveys in 7 languages: English, Spanish, Portuguese, German, Italian, Dutch, and Japanese. We plan to continue to roll out more countries and languages soon. I would expect we'd have a clearer picture of this towards the end of the year. So for those of you in countries where we may not have launched yet, please do stay tuned.
And Matt, this is actually an interesting point too. You know, the availability of surveys in multiple languages. You know, I think that this actually cuts a couple different ways. You know, if you're a publisher and that you've added Google Consumer Surveys to your content, you know, and actually created that ability for people to interact with those surveys, you know, you can really address the audience in the language that they're most comfortable speaking in. But then also from the user standpoint, you know, I think it gives a lot more granularity and flexibility around, you know, the type of results that you're getting, because you really are addressing the right audience. You're addressing both through demographics and the languages that they're able to speak.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, as we begin. What we're excited about doing is obviously expanding the reach of the product. So I think for researchers, this is big as well, to be able to, you know, we're really becoming a global community. So for researchers, it's very important to be able to understand, you know, consumer insights across the globe. So we're very excited about expanding as well. So this, I wanted to just show you a quick snapshot of the results interface. This is what you would see after you, if you were to run one of the surveys. The takeaway here is that the product really tries to do a lot of the work for you. On the left-hand side are all the basic characteristics by which you can easily slice and dice the information, by age, by gender, by geography, even inferred household income, for example. And then on the right-hand side, you have options for weighting. And importantly, you have the ability to export as a CSV file. For those of you who prefer to download raw data into an Excel and do your own slicing and dicing. So lots of flexibility here, but there's a lot of work that the UI itself tries to do for you to make the whole process easier.
And let's just drill into that for just a second, Matt. You know, so tell us a little bit first of all about the weighted options there. What is that feature, and how does that help me as a researcher?
Yeah, so the default is that the weighting is on. So just to summarize that at a very high level, what the system does is that it weights based on well, the motivations for the weighting is basically to get it as close to the representative sample of that target audience as possible, right? So let's say, for instance, you ran a survey, but you know there were less females than the you know, what the true representative sample of that population is. Well, that weighting will compensate for that. To kind of take that into account, to make that, to kind of bring your results more into balance with the actual population. And then, of course, there's an option there on the right-hand side to turn that weighting off. If you wanted to, some researchers like to turn that weighting off, download the CSV and apply their own weighting to it as well. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, a lot of different ways to go there.
Got it. So like when you download that CSV file, I mean, it looks like this visualization tool is built into Google Consumer Surveys. You know, does it give you the ability to embed those graphs and the bar charts and things we're looking at here? And if not, you know, I imagine if you downloaded that CSV file, then you could really take that into just about any type of visualization tool you wanted, whether that be, you know, something like CartoDB or another type of chart or bar graph or other type of visualization tool.
Yes, absolutely, and many of our customers actually do that. So they download the CSV file and into a data visualization software of their choice, or some have their own methodologies in-house as well. So, especially if they want to go beyond what we're offering here.
Gotcha.
So before we move ahead, I wanted to plug a site we've created with journalists and newsrooms in mind. This is a site where you can access some ready-to-use data from recent polls and surveys. So the site is g.co/surveys. Our only ask here, of course, is that if you use any of the data, please cite Google Consumer Surveys as a source. But again, you're all professionals in your field, so that probably goes without saying. But important here on this link as well, keep in mind too that you'll have an opportunity to apply to create your own surveys for free as a journalist or newsroom. So I'll jot this down, but I'll put this up one more time before we wrap up today. But I think this could be a useful place, again, for some ready-to-use information, but also applying for a program that our team has been putting together that basically gives you some free surveys on our platform.
That's great. So, we're really giving people the opportunity to play around with this and get used to it, before really diving in and committing to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of playing around, so this whole time I've been, I've sort of been running my mouth about how easy it is to create a survey, blah, blah, blah. Well, let me put my money where my mouth is. Let's take a walk through the actual survey creator so I can show you what I mean by that. Just give me one moment to switch screens here. All righty.
And as Matt's getting set up there, just a reminder to folks who are dialed in live, or if you've joined this office hour after the live broadcast date, you can definitely send in your questions either via the comment section, or you can send it in via Twitter at twitter.com/Google News Lab, and we will answer your questions as they come in.
Okay, so you should be on the Google Consumer Surveys homepage. Are you seeing that?
We are seeing that.
You are seeing that?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, good. Excellent, excellent. So I'm going to start here at Create a Survey. And you can see it's really 3 steps here. You pick your audience, you write your questions, you confirm your survey, and off you go. So here's a survey name. I'm just going to leave it as today's date, but know that you can customize the survey name, of course. And then here are your targeting options for your audience. Now, ignore your website. This is actually for website owners. You probably won't even see this if you're going onto the tool. This is for website owners who use GCS as a website satisfaction tool. So let's just ignore that for the moment. But you can see you can target the general population. You could limit it to just the Android users, so that basically the respondents on the Google Opinion Rewards app. And then some audience panels. These are sort of pre-recruited audience panels from our mobile app that we have that you can target. So what we're going to do here, just for simplicity, is just keep it a general population. And then some more drill downs here for your targeting options. Ages, for example, which I'm not going to change, but you can see you could drill down to the different age brackets here. Women, I'm going to leave this, but you can see you can different countries where we're live. And in the countries that you target, you can actually target by region or state, for example. So lots of options there. But again, I'm just going to leave this for the sake of our demonstration here. Just leave everything as is. I'm going to hit continue. And then you select your question format. I was talking about all the multiple formats that we had. So you can see from single answer all the way to images. And then there's an open end as well. So you can essentially enable this for users to just type in an answer. I'm going to choose multiple answers for this one to add a question. And I was driving in today and on the we're talking about. So here in the U.S. there's this controversy. There's an American football player by the name of Colin Kaepernick who in order to make a stand against police brutality, he's been sitting during the playing of the national anthem. So I thought this would be a good question to just kind of use as an example here, as it's sort of going on here in the US right now. So I'm going to ask, should professional athletes be required to stand during the playing of the national anthem? Okay, so as you can see, as I typed that, the survey itself was populating on the right-hand side. So you really get to see what your survey will look like out in the wild. So that's a really nice feature as you're putting this together. So now I'm going to provide my answer choices. I'll just keep it simple: yes, no. And notice that it defaulted on the right-hand side a none of the above answer. So just know that the system doesn't allow just binary choices for the answers. It wants to, again, keeping user experience in mind, it wants to give the user an out. So if they don't want to answer the question, basically. So some couple of options on the question itself. You can see you can randomize the answer order. It defaults to that because studies have shown that it produces best quality results for multiple choice answers there. You can also screen with this question. Like, for example, let's say I wanted to screen for only the users that answer yes. I could do that, and then I could add another question as a follow-up, and it would only show to the users that have answered yes. So there's certainly flexibility here. But again, just to keep things simple, I'll keep it a single question survey here and keep it moving. So I will confirm that. And I'm just going to do this once. Let's go with 1,500 responses. Basically, it's amounting to 10 cents per completed question here. And I am going to buy now.
So that took all of like 2 minutes to create that survey.
Yeah, if you stripped out all of my my narrative, yes, it's very easy. So now it's going to go into review. It'll be reviewed. These are usually reviewed in less than an hour. They basically just review based on we have certain editorial policies. Like, for example, they're going to look for whether or not this is an ad masking as a survey, those kind of things. Obviously, grammar and spelling as well. But that review process is very quick. And again, this survey will probably be collecting answers within the hour.
And Matt, just a quick question on that review process. Is that algorithmically based, or is there actual people looking through each one of these and approving or denying them as they come in?
Now, this is going to sound this is going to be surprising to most, given Google's reliance on technology for everything and algorithms. But human beings actually review each and every survey before it actually goes live out onto the publisher network or the Google Opinion Rewards app.
That's great.
All right, so let's see. Let me switch back over.
And Matt, while you're getting set up there, just another quick question there. We were talking a little bit about the randomization, some of the other options that are available. Like, let's say, for example, I'm creating a survey. This is like my first survey. I'm not a researcher by training. I'm a journalist perhaps, but like I'm not really trained in like the more idiosyncratic points to think about when actually creating a survey. Is there guidelines or other types of information that I can turn to get the best possible results out of my survey through Google Consumer Surveys?
Well, they obviously, quick Google searches can probably come up with a lot of best practices, but we do provide some best practices as well on our help centers, et cetera. We are very mindful of the fact, though, that we know that we ourselves are not researchers. I think we have very, our strength obviously is our technology, and of course the reach that we're able to provide with that technology. So, Yes, we can provide some of the basics, but I would encourage if anyone's looking to go a little bit deeper into market research best practices. There are a lot of resources out there as well. In fact, there's a survey research scientist at Google by the name of Mario Callegaro, Callegaro. He's going to kill me if I misspelled that. But if you search, he has a web surveys book that he's published as well. So plenty of research, plenty of resources out there for you. So
got it. Yeah, and we'll actually post some links in the description of this video as well. I know that there's a lot of really good opportunities. Pointer has a lot of really good resources for putting together effective surveys, and there's many others as well. So we'll dig into that a little bit. We'll put some links to some resources you can take a look at in the actual description of the YouTube video. So for those of you that are joining in a little after the fact, those will be provided for you. And actually, while we're taking a quick pause here, we actually have a question that just came in. Okay. Yes and no is the name of the person asking the question. They say, I have a question about the survey. Am I able to attach the survey on a PDF on a Google document after people have read my journalistic work to get feedback? So I think what they're actually asking is is it something that just only lives on the web, or is this something that I can actually attach a survey to a document of some sort and link off to maybe a URL link in some way?
Yeah, these surveys are, so our distribution is strictly across our publisher network and the Google Opinion Rewards app. So in terms of distributing the survey, those would be the only avenues available through the tool.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. Just as far as how these are distributed, how people access these, and this goes a little bit towards what we were just talking about around the publishers network.
Right, right. So are you seeing the deck again?
Yes, sir. Well, we see the g.co/consumer surveys page. Excellent. Let's create a survey.
Excellent. All right. So what I wanted to do, this is a busy slide. I don't expect you to digest everything on this slide. It's like it's our NASCAR slide, right? But really, the reason why I'm showing this is that it's intended to illustrate at a very high level how GCS has proven useful for news organizations and journalists across the board. So there, you can see that GCS data has been cited in several news stories by several news publications. And we'll take a look at some specifics here. Like, for instance, this was a New York Times piece that was written prior to last year's Oscars that showed that American Sniper was the people's choice. The movie, of course, as you know, was indeed nominated, but sadly, the will of the people did not win the day on this one. But it was an interesting piece prior to the Oscars and leading into the festivities of that night. Now, this is a piece from the New York Times as well that explored the rise of women opting to hold on to their maiden names. And I thought this was a great example of GCS being used in the creation of more, let's say, investigative, more long-form content. So you could see some of the flexibility there where, the last piece was a relatively shorter piece just on, people's opinions about the Oscars. And this one goes a little bit deeper and then looks at, digs into this idea of maiden names.
And what are we looking at from a sample size standpoint for those last two examples? I mean, are we talking about hundreds, thousands? What kind of data are we getting on these kind of?
Typically, and that's always going to be chosen by the researcher, or if the journalist is using GCS, the journalist. If you remember our little walk through the survey creator, I was able to choose the number of responses I wanted, right? So it's really based on the preference of the researcher. Typically, for something like this, you're probably looking, let's say if this was a general population survey for the maiden names to the US online population, at minimum, you're probably going to look at about 1,000 to 1,500 responses to try to get a good sample. So, And then this one was interesting. We partnered with the Boston Globe's newsroom last year and provided them with some free surveys. And what they did was they used surveys to ask the nation's opinion of the Deflategate ruling versus the opinions of those in New England. And for those not familiar with the story, Tom Brady is a popular American football player, especially in the New England area. And he was accused of improperly deflating footballs before a game. A suspension was handed down, then vacated, and then it was reinstated. But in any case, at the time, it was vacated, and Boston Globe wanted to know how the nation felt versus the New England area. And you could probably imagine what the result was. The nation wasn't in favor of the suspension being vacated, while New England was very thrilled about it.
I imagine Patriots fans were probably pretty excited about the fact that that got let go.
Well, in the end, there was some legal wranglings. In the end, Tom Brady's starting this season on a 4-game suspension, but that's neither here nor there. And then this one, now this is also from last year, and is hands down one of my favorites, mainly because it's important and it's politics. And also it included Lord Voldemort, the bad guy in the Harry Potter books / movies, in the field of 2016 presidential candidates. So this was early on in the race, June of last year. Truly serious stuff here, as you can tell. As Lord Voldemort polled better than most Republican candidates. But even more interesting, as the GCS survey uncovered in this piece, the Terminator, Darth Vader, and the shark from Jaws were all more popular than all 2016 candidates, whether Republican or Democratic. So go shark from Jaws. Some of these examples, of course, are a bit more tongue-in-cheek, but I think, again, it just underscores the flexibility of how, as a journalist or a newsroom, GCS data can be used to add color to the content creation process. Now, I wanted to revisit, this is my final slide today, but just wanted to revisit this link again. Again, some ready-to-use data for you. Just cite Google Consumer Surveys if you intend to publish the data. But also, remember, apply to create your own surveys for free. I think it could be a great opportunity for you to test the tool out and see how it fits within your day-to-day. How can this make life easier for you as you continue to create the high-quality journalism that we've come so accustomed to seeing from all of you. So, and that's it from me. So thank you very much for your time.
No, I appreciate it, Matt. This has been a fantastic overview of Google Consumer Surveys. And again, if you're interested in getting more information about that, we have tutorials on our site at g.co/newslab. If you have additional questions or comments, feel free to add those into the comment section within the YouTube page. We'll be following up also with links to some of the things that Matt mentioned earlier. Matt, can we also get some of those URL links for examples that people could take a look at as well to drop down in that?
Absolutely, to include in the post after.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get that all to you, Nick.
That's great. Yeah, so we'll add all those resources in there, and then we had just one last question coming in, and we mentioned this previously, but just in case folks missed it, is this only available in the United States, or where else? You had a bit of a laundry list of other locations that you're expanding out into.
Yeah, it's available in 10 countries right now. In addition to the U.S., it's available in Canada, UK, Mexico, Japan, Australia, Brazil, Spain, France, and Germany. And we hope to expand that list and hopefully have more clarity and more news for you. I'd say maybe towards the end of the year.
That's great. Well, so we'll definitely check back in with you towards the end of the year. As we have more information, we'll add that into the description of the office hour, and we'll see you guys all next week. Thanks again, Matt.
Thank you.
Take care.